meeting today, if that's all right with everyone, and Chloe's going to be taking minutes because our chair and secretary are unfortunately unavailable last minute. So I guess I'll start calling the meeting to order by acknowledging that Concordia University is on the traditional territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka, a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst nations. The Concordia Student Union recognizes and respects the Kanien'kehá:ka as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters on which we meet today. So we only have 2 points on our agenda, as you can see here.
We just need to approve the secretary.
Okay, that's true. We have an unusual secretary and chair. So
Just to go through the motions, I just move to approve Chloe as the secretary.
does anyone second? Great. So is there any discussion to be had on Chloe Williams as the secretary? Simon, is that a
No?
Okay. So all those in favor of the secretary for today? Anyone against? Anyone who abstains? So that passes by majority. We'd also have to have a motion for myself as a temporary chair for the meeting today. No? Okay. Oh, great. That's true. Sorry. So I de facto, if the chair's not there, is replaced by academic. So you have me automatically. Sorry about that. Okay. I guess Terry's coming back. He'll be speaking to the first point, which is the Reggie's contingency and soft costs.
Here's the roll call.
Great. So we'll pass around the roll call. And we just jumped right into it, Terry.
Okay, great. Alright, so I'm just going to start by reading the motion, and then we can get into an explanation soon. So, whereas the CSU 2015 general election referendum question on Reggie's reconstruction was strongly supported, whereas the Verco was awarded the renovation contract for Reggie's and has begun construction, be it resolved that CSU Council approve $544,000 for the remaining necessary costs that pertain to Reggie's renovation, which is to be expensed by the Student Space Accessible Education and Legal Contingency Fund. Be it further resolved that if the projected total net costs for Reggie's reconstruction exceeds $1.8 million, then further expenses return to CSU Council for deliberation prior to approval.
Great. So can we have a seconder for that motion, please? Thank you, Lucy. Would you like to expand on that?
Sure, great. So, I guess I communicated about this on the Facebook group prior to holding the meeting, just because we were figuring out exactly what amounts were needing to be processed. So it's more or less a housekeeping measure from the previous mandate where students had adopted a resolution via referendum urging us to continue moving ahead with the plans we had constructed over the past year for Reggie's reconstruction. And in the portion that's being asked to be expensed properly here is the construction contingency of roughly around $120,000. So besides that amount, the rest of it is for general soft costs, which I've elaborated on briefly. That include like equipment, professional fees that date back to the inception of this new reconstruction program, and the AV equipment, other general interdepartmental costs, such as just asking for like space override requests and things like this within the university. So another reason why I included the second portion of the motion is because throughout the conversations last year, it was understood that the 1.8 million was like an estimate that was given to us not only within the staff people in the university administration, but also from third-party expertise professionals that we've been consulting who have helped us construct this estimate that we had sent out for tender. So just in the case that it does happen to go over 1.8 million, I feel that it's appropriate to come back to the board and explain why that is. However, the current projected final costs after we procure the taxes we would initially have to pay sits at below the 1.8 threshold, so to speak. But just for peace of mind, I guess, in the referendum question that was supported by our membership in the general election, it also alluded to quite explicitly the potential for the cost to increase beyond 1.8. However, that amount obviously was not clear because it's only during the construction, there may be a circumstance that arises where the material of a wall or something is different than what you thought, and therefore it costs more to take it down and things like that. But nothing extreme like that has come up so far. And we're at a stage right now where the space has been completely gutted out, and Lori is getting updates on a weekly basis because she's meeting with the project manager and things like this. So if there's any specific questions about how the construction's coming along, I'm sure she'd be able to answer them, but I just wanted to introduce this point regarding the finances. And I guess I'll just say one more point here, is that prior to this meeting today, in the previous year's mandate, we had received a motion from the board, from council, to put $1.8 million in escrow, which essentially means that the money is guaranteed by a third party in the context of a binding agreement. In this case, it's with the university. So looking at the way that the costs are breaking down, at one point, although since the costs for this project aren't in one single tranche, they're coming throughout. So I doubt that we will exceed that 1.8 amount in any single moment, but just given that the entire project cost before the recuperation of taxes and other things sits at above 1.8, we figure that this amount here should cover exactly what is necessary for the project to be completed in timely manner.
Thanks, Terry.
No problem.
I guess we can do a speakers list if anyone has questions for Terry or general comments, because we are in the motion itself. Go ahead, Lori.
And if anyone has any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Just for clarification, it's just every cost associated with the construction project is put into this number, and that's what it's, right? It's just an approval for
Sorry,
every
can't
single-
we hear you?
Sorry, it's just for clarification, this number is just every single cost that's associated with the project, just put into one for approval, right?
Yeah.
Terry?
Or sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yep. That is exactly what it is. Like from the initial professional fees
Yeah.
that we had incurred from the design phase,
Yeah.
all the way up until the paint dries on the signage of Reggie's. Was a nice way to put it. Yeah.
Did anyone else have any questions or comments or discussion around this motion that was read out and that you have in the documents? Yeah. Go ahead, Nathan.
So not specifically directly related to the motion, but could you give us an update as to the general construction, how it's going so far?
Most definitely. Right now, demolition phase is complete. It's bare to the bone. And now we're actually looking at the process of the foundation. So now the flooring is looking good. We preserved the materials that we needed. And now we're doing repairs to it. We have been having certain things arise because what happens is you have a project in which when you start the construction and demolition, there's things that arise that you hadn't had on architectural plans. So right now what I'm doing and what I'm facilitating is making sure that the project runs smoothly, as well as approving things so that we have the project open in time. So as it stands right now, we're at demolition phase complete. It's bare to the bone, like the Reggies and Hive, and now we're starting to build. And if you'd like to see videos, we have a couple of those as well.
We'll go with Kate and then Terry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd like to speak in favor of the motion because, last year we had the referendum that approved the project for 1.2 to 1.8, so it's just, we're not reapproving other thing, it's just the subdivision of the funding that we approved as a referendum, so it's like only logical to reapprove like the subdivision in the sense that what's specified here is the soft costs according to the motion that I read, and the AV equipment and whatnot, whereas all the other parts were already approved last year. So it's really just to avoid any confusion and just make sure everything is approved. So I would speak in favor of it.
Terry?
So I just wanted to make one remark about the way that contingencies work. Generally, there's like an industry standard that we follow, and it's to address things that, like Lori had brought up, that are unforeseeable, or if there is a desire to make a slight modification during the construction. And one that has come up in discussions is potentially to give access to both the Hive and Reggie's to the kitchen space. But that's something that we're still trying to get more details on. But from our understanding, it's well within, like we're just talking about putting in a door in a certain spot, it's well within the $120,000 contingency for the construction. But I figured this would be a good moment to talk about potentially that being something that we move forward with. However, I'm meeting with the co-op Intel Fast, the business plan folks, soon on Reggie, so we'll be looking into those details and the feasibility of that, and I'm sure I'll be communicating the results of those conversations with folks very soon.
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments or discussion around this motion? It's sounding in the room like there's a pretty good understanding about what we're deciding here. So if no one else has anything to contribute, we go right to a vote. So those who are in favor of approving the contingency and soft costs for Reggie's. Those who are opposed. And any abstentions? Thanks very much. So that looks like it was approved almost unanimously. Yeah. Congratulations. Gonna have Reggie. All right. Moving on. We'd be at the point CSU daycare design phase. So I think Terry, you're also going to read us this motion.
Yeah. So this is Marion's report and motion. However, since she's acting as chair, we figured that we might as well keep our hats on and not let them fall to the ground. So I'm just going to follow the same process that I did with the previous one. Whereas the university is moving ahead with rezoning, with the rezoning of a space to provide to the CSU for a daycare project, whereas undergraduate students have shown overwhelming support for the initiative through a referendum question in the fall by-election of 2014, whereas the CSU has received a promising offer of services from an architectural firm specializing in childcare services and centers. Be it resolved that Council empowers the executive to begin the design phase of the CSU daycare project by authorizing the Apollon contract of $25,000, including relevant expenses and taxes, which is to be expensed by the Student Space Accessible Education Legal Contingency Fund, and be it further resolved that this expense be contingent on the approval of the fund committee.
Thanks, Terry. Could we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Michael. So would you like to elaborate?
Sure, yeah. So I hope people had a chance to read the preliminary document from Apollon that kind of goes over their extensive experience working with over a dozen childcare centers.
Oh, 45.
Yeah, 35. And there's a really cute picture at the last page that I encourage you to check out. Besides that, I see some nodding heads. I think they approve. So we are really lucky to be able to take advantage of Maggie Apollon's services. Like, this person's an expert with not only the needs of children, but also the needs of the government, because we do have to follow very stringent regulations in terms of space and ratios and requirements and daylight. So I feel that this is going to give our side a lot of peace of mind, and it's also reassured the university that we're going to be making sure that when we do a renovation, we'll be doing it properly. And unfortunately, we had to black out a section of the mandate or offer from the architectural firm, just because it locates where the daycares plan to be, and we're just not at the moment right now to be able to speak about that like openly. Just because it's the university who we need to make a formal agreement with first. However, to reassure people here, the university has gone ahead and paid for a request to rezone the land with the city of Montreal, and that costs around $1,000. So before it was more just about holding conversations, but then we presented some more information about how we would like the space to operate and things like this in a detailed kind of format. And they were really pleased to see that, and by kind of moving forward with this more monetary contribution, it's kind of solidified that this space is one that they know that we're following up their action by doing this and moving ahead with hiring Apollo. So I think it's more just about finalizing things before making it public. However, we hope that before the end of the summer, that's going to be the case. So we can start talking to students about it, and I'm be more than happy to answer some questions. I don't really have much more. Yeah.
Like, assuming we approve this, what would be the next thing that we would have to approve after it's in the process?
Okay. Yeah.
Terry?
Great. So, depending on the time that it takes to do this, in this by this I mean the architectural phase, it either will be kind of the approval of moving ahead with going to tender, similar to what we did with Reggie's, or it may be the introduction or the hiring of a project manager who will be overseeing not only this aspect of the project, but also helping implement and make operational the kind of business plan that we've been working on. So in terms of chronology, it's difficult to say which one would come first, just because we haven't formally met them besides the assessment that they gave us. So once we know that, and it'll probably be very soon, I'm saying before the start of the academic year, or before September, we can definitely elaborate that. And I'm sure there'll be a very detailed kind of step-by-step articulation of what's going to be coming next in our various work plans in terms of people who will be working closely with the project.
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah.
Are there other questions for Terry or discussion around the daycare motion? Go ahead, Michael.
Were there any other architects other than Maggie Eponol who were contacted, or did you speak to anyone else about the plans?
Yes.
Okay.
Victor's fine.
Okay, great.
I didn't know
No,
what
it's
signals
okay.
were there.
All right, so in the past, we have worked with the university's architects in like a very preliminary sense. However, given like the very precise needs that come with this project, we didn't very much explore that option, and we didn't contact any other third-party groups except for this one because it was recommended to us by 2 or 3 different folks who have already opened up a daycare. So in terms of experience, I think this is the most like rigorous, comprehensive group that we can kind of choose to go with. Yeah.
Did you want to follow up?
Yeah. Just as a follow-up, you mentioned UQAM. Are there any other examples of this architect specifically working within the institutional context of a university or something like that?
So I think they've worked with, was it Trois Rivières?
I know they also consulted on McGill's project
Mm-hmm.
because our daycare consultant who worked with us in an earlier phase of this project recommended Apollon, as well as the people we talked to at UQAM. They both.
Yeah, I'm not sure if on that list of 30 some odd groups,
Yeah, there's like 45 groups on that list.
Mhm.
I'm not sure.
but I'm not sure how many are in the university. I just didn't print that one out. I only printed out the contract offer. But
It's just on the list. There was a lot of like standalone daycare sort of thing. So I was wondering about like within the university.
So, I guess just a very quick response. the regulations we need to follow don't change whether it's in a university setting or not. The advantage of having someone like Pauline Gervais, who's our consultant in the spring, was that she's familiar with engaging the Ministry of Family sector to procure grants and subsidies to operate on a CPE status. So that doesn't change the infrastructure side of the project, it's more the day-to-day operation side. So I think that's when that specialization, in terms of having worked in a university institution, becomes more pertinent to our specific needs than, say, for the architectural side.
Thanks. Does anyone else have questions or discussion on the daycare? Well, it sounds like everyone's just excited to play at the daycare. I guess we can go right to the vote then. So those in favor of approving the motion around the design phase for the CSU daycare, please raise your black codes.
Could you repeat the motion before?
Sure. So, do you want the whereas or just the be it resolved?
Just be it resolved.
Okay, so we're putting the vote on pause for a minute here. So be it resolved that Council empowers the executive to begin the design phase of the CSU daycare project by authorizing the Apollon contract of $25,000, including relevant taxes, which is to be expensed by the Student Space Accessible Education Legal Contingency Fund. Be it further resolved that this expense be contingent on the approval of the fund committee. So is the motion clear to anyone? Is there any questions?
No, perfect.
Great. So those who are in favor of the motion that was just read out, please raise your placards. Great. Those who are opposed? And any abstentions? Great. Congratulations. The motion passes. For the take. Yes, Terry.
I just wanted to say one last very quick thing, is that we may need to contact or provide ourselves with more services from Apollon if there's a need for like structural architect designs or something very specific to like the needs of that building. So I just didn't want to close the door, so to speak, on the design phase only being related to the costs that we see today, just because from the experience with Reggie's and from other projects, there's a need sometimes to like procure more services for architectural design, so that we can have an effective tender go out, so that construction firms are fully aware of the needs behind the project. Yeah.
Sure.
Might additional costs be related to also increasing the number of spots in the daycare, or is that like not a thing? Is that like a factor maybe? Or?
You'd like to start?
Yeah, sure. I think that's part of it,
Okay.
because we're also finalizing the operations of the daycare, and there's a kitchen that currently exists in the building that I can't say. So do we want to make the food in-house? Do we not?
Okay.
There's other questions that come up, so I guess that also impacts things like electrical designs and mechanical designs and things like this. But there's some questions that still will be like answered more in detail once we have the basic services completed.
Great. So what you're saying is we might reopen this design phase at a later date?
Yeah, like in no way is this like an exhaustive cost at the moment. However, yeah, I just want people to be aware of that. Yeah.
Thanks for the information.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all the points we had on the agenda for tonight. Lucy.
I motion to adjourn.
Lucy, motion to adjourn. Seconded by Kate. All in favor of adjourning this special council meeting of June 25th. Is anyone opposed to the adjournment? Are there any abstentions? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for coming in tonight, everyone. Happy Thursday.